Yeah, so just a quick review of the ProStretch shoulder flex. This is really kind of the more interesting devices that I've reviewed. Basically, um, you have to kind of put it together, but it's used basically for one thing, and that is to increase range of motion of your shoulder, particularly rotation. Okay, which is kind of a hard motion, to get back. If you have some stiffness or you tear your rotator cuff, you just had surgery. So somebody developed this. Kind of wish I thought of it first. Basically, that's one way you use it, but it's got about 4 different ways that you can use it. One here is to get external rotation. Okay, that's like just bringing your arm to the side. This is external rotation up high as you abduct your arm or bring it away from your body. Internal rotation, that's the shoulder rotating in, and then there's an advanced one too. So it's got these different ways of doing this, really kind of clever. So I would say if you're looking to, you have trouble like putting your hand behind your back or bringing your arm out to the side, that's internal and external rotation, because your shoulder is a ball and socket joint, and it rotates. So it rotates in, rotates out, and that's the main motions that this device was really made, to improve upon. So it sounds like something you need. It's a pretty clever device. Now, if you did have a rotator cuff tear, one other thing you might want to consider. This is one of the better resources. There's only like a couple books on rotator cuffs on Amazon that I found. This is probably the best one. The 6-minute torn rotator cuff solution for seniors. The ProStretch shoulder flex is increased range of motion. Okay, so that's to get flexibility back. Doesn't do much really for strengthening your shoulder. So if you need exercises for that, this is a good resource. And forget the for seniors. I don't know why they did that, because basically athletes can use the same program. So if you have any kind of rotator cuff issue, or even if you just have a shoulder problem, strengthening your rotator cuff goes a long way. And I'll tell you why in solving shoulder problems. Basically, like I say, your shoulder is a shallow ball and socket joint. It depends heavily on the muscles, really, for stabilizing it. It's not like your hip where you have a deep ball and socket joint. The rotator cuff is really the group of muscles that stabilizes your shoulder joint. If you strengthen your rotator cuff and you stabilize your shoulder better, there's going to be a lot less irritation in your shoulder in general, and a lot of problems like bursitis, impingement syndrome just go away, basically. So it kind of goes into what the rotator cuff is. Lots of pictures here. If you're a visual learner, you'll like it. It's not boring medical jargon. Answers you need to know. How do they? What are the symptoms of a rotator cuff tear? Any arm maneuvers that might indicate you have a tear? Where does it tear at? Like I say, if you have a rotator cuff tear, this is going to answer about all your questions. There are different kinds of. Here's a good one. I have a rotator cuff tear and I'm in a lot of pain. I need surgery, right? Well, not really. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. The only way to answer that, well, I'll tell you this book answers its questions with evidence. It's a very evidence-based book, and it looks at studies. So each one of these squares is like a study. So here again, okay, so I have a tear, my shoulder's killing me, I need surgery, right? Well, not necessarily. So these studies, they might take 100 people with a rotator cuff tear, they measure the size of the tear, and then they see how bad they're hurting. They might run a visual analog scale. So you have 100 people with tears, and you know the severity of their pain. So what do they find? Well, actually, they find a lot of people have big tears in their rotator cuff and have no pain. So it's totally possible to have an asymptomatic rotator cuff tear. That's why, you don't want to you go to the doctor, my shoulder hurts, you end up having an MRI. Oh, you have a big tear. That's your problem. We need to fix it. Not necessarily. You could have an asymptomatic rotator cuff tear, and you don't really jump into surgery and a rotator cuff repair because maybe that's not your problem. Maybe it's something else that's causing you the shoulder pain. So anyway, that answers that. What will happen if I leave my rotator cuff tear alone? Here we go. Look at some long-term follow-up studies. Maybe they take 50 people with rotator cuff tears that for some reason or another don't end up getting any treatment, and they follow them over time. So like in 5 years, untreated rotator cuff tears, what happens? Does it repair itself? Does it get better on its own? Here's the best one of all. How does exercise compare to surgery when it comes to treating my torn rotator cuff? So the only way to answer that scientifically is looking at the randomized controlled trials. That's the highest form of proof in medicine that a treatment is actually effective. So this book has compiled all the randomized controlled trials of surgery versus exercise. And so that's where you take maybe 100 people with a torn rotator cuff, 50 you randomly assigned to surgery, the other 50 you randomly assigned to an exercise program. And then you follow them over like 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years. There's some really good follow-up studies. And so who did better? So at 1 year, at 2 year, who does better? The people that had their rotator cuff tear repaired or those that did an exercise? basically, to make a long story short, there's not going to be much difference. You're going to end up at the same place. So anyway, it has the exercises. So like I say, if you're looking for more exercises, good resource for your rotator cuff. Has beginning, intermediate, and advanced program. And it does, and the exercises do literally take 6 minutes or less to do. It's a really concise, evidence-based program. But hey, if your problem seems like it's more range of motion and it's not lack of strength, I think this is, especially with rotation, I think this is a very good device to check out. So there you go.